I don't have 75, 90 minutes to spend in the gym. So you'll bench and you'll do chin-ups. You'll bench and you'll do bent over rows with like 1 minute rest in between. You're doing a push and then a pull. So you get a lot more work a lot quicker.
Always training with training partners, always early. Message a friend, meet them at the gym. Message a friend, go take a class. Message a friend, hit our workout. And I guarantee you it'll be easier.
Say you're benching 225 and you know that 5 reps is going to be sketchy. So you get to 3, then you're like, all right, I feel good about 4. So you get to 4, 5, you're like, if I had a spotter, I would get after it, but I don't. So rack it and then grab a pair of dumbbells and blast out a drop set. Like you're going to get the adaptation in a very safe way.
I know that when I work out early, it always, without fail, allows me to be a better person throughout that day. Always. Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe Yanez and I, we are joining you on this inauguration day, 2025. Gabe, good morning. Good afternoon. It's a little bit later for you. I saw you did a row test earlier. So are you going to spill the beans and tell me here? You're going to wait until our episode with Dennis and MDV?
No way. Yeah. You got to check out the episode with the whole crew. Really excited for that segment. So our producer, Liz, had the great idea to get some competitive juices flowing with that crew of 4. Give us a little like physical challenge to do every week. We do have to figure out like how, I think her intention was like whoever wins picks
Get
like
something?
the next week's challenge. Like who then makes up what the next week's is going to be. I think it should be well, I don't know. Should it be the person that gets like last? But then, because then
I think it should be Liz.
You can come up with something. It could be Liz.
Yeah.
And she just comes up with the challenge every week. But I was thinking about that as I was doing it. But no, people have to check out the episode with the whole crew to find out what everyone got. Jay spilled the beans on Instagram for his score, but dude, it's 90 seconds max cal row. All I'll say is what I was thinking about is those 90 seconds. It's like the fastest minute followed by the slowest 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. Like the first minute flew by because you want to like rack up some calories. And then the last 30 seconds, once you're hurting, like the seconds were like dragging on. You were just wishing.
That's always what happens, right? Like you hit that lactic acid, like you hit that fatigue and you're just like, oh dude, right after a minute, it just kicks in. So you're going to spill the results on. So, guys, if you're listening to the podcast regularly, you're hearing episodes with Gabe and I. You're also hearing episodes with Gabe, myself, Dennis, and Matt, MDV. And those episodes, they're more recent, but man, they're incredible. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure to do so. They're so fun. And we're going to be spilling about the calories there. I don't know. Maybe I took the win. Maybe I didn't, but we'll have to see what the next challenge is.
I mean, spoiler alert, you can row more calories than me in 90 seconds.
Spoiler alert.
Dude, if I beat you in that, there'd be some big trouble. No, but I was happy with it. It was a good test. 90 seconds is a good little time. And it was interesting for me because, I've been training long and slow, man. I mean, not long and slow, but long efforts. I'm training for a marathon. I'm not really doing these like 90-second, 2-minute efforts that I used to do, but it's interesting how you maintain that to an extent. Obviously, if you're doing strength training, like what we do in Flex, combining that with, the stuff that I'm doing on the running side. So if you're ever on our hybrid track, we combine those two. Like you can maintain these energy systems that you're maybe not specifically training. I can't tell you the last time I did a 90-second all-out effort, but I was honestly really pleasantly surprised. So always a nice little, the proof's in the pudding for what we put out on the Train Hard side, because I do Flex every single day. I do it as written because I test it. And then in addition to that, I do a little bit of running. I've combined them exactly how it shows up in our Flex hybrid track in the past. Currently, I'm doing a little bit different. I'm also not running. I'm subbing out bike and stuff because I'm dealing with the sciatic injury. But that's what I do. And it's always nice to do a test and be pleasantly surprised because, we're doing something right. So that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing the workout I did today came from Force. And it was work up to a heavy 3 back squat in 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was. And then Dennis has been programming these 15-minute AMRAPs. I'm sure you've seen these. They're more strength-focused AMRAPs. So like today, it was accumulate max reps of chin-ups. I took this workout from a little bit ago. Chin-ups, strict press, and front squats with dumbbells. and accumulate max reps. So when you read it at the first time I did this, I was like, I was like, okay, tell me more. Dude, it's great. I love the way he programs this because I'll do like 5 chin-ups, and then I did 5 strict press, and then I did 7 front squats with heavy dumbbells. And you start off, you're like, okay, this isn't bad. This isn't bad. Dude, my buddy and I, we got to 8 minutes in. I look at him, I was like, damn, by that time, you've already gotten in tons of volume, tons of reps, a little bit of heart rate elevation. But the way it was designed, it's like, it's really, really cool the way he puts these together because the movements keep you moving, but you're able to get in a lot of heavy volume. And then after that, we did, max meters on a C2 bike in 10 minutes, which
nice
got nasty.
Yeah, 10 minutes is a nasty time frame. But yeah, man, we're all about, because I think about this too when I'm doing flex, like efficiency in the time you're spending in the gym is so important. You think about from like a pure hypertrophy standpoint, like if I were to just program for someone that has all the time in the world and their number one goal is building muscle, you wouldn't necessarily do like too much supersetting or like sets with like 3 pieces. Like you want to do one movement, plenty of rest in between, and hit that movement super hard and move on to the next. But that takes a lot of time. Like if you're doing just incline bench press, 4 sets, 8 to 12, plenty of rest in between, really going to failure each one, and then you move on to your next movement, then you move on to your next movement, you could easily do a 75, 90-minute session, maybe even more, to hit your muscle groups and the amount of volume that you want to hit. And it'll be really high quality work. Great, perfect. I don't have 75, 90 minutes to spend in the gym. I know a lot of people listening don't have, 75, 90 minutes. So almost everything that you'll see in flex, with very few exceptions, will be antagonistic superset. So you'll bench and you'll do chin-ups. You'll bench and you'll do bent over rows with like 1 minute rest in between. So you're getting plenty of rest between the movement. Like you'll do the bench and then you have plenty of rest before you get the bench again. But in that rest, you're doing something that's using the muscle groups that you didn't just use. You're doing a push and then a pull. So you get a lot more work a lot quicker. Is that like the most ideal? You could argue no, but you can get incredible quality work now in a 40 to 60 minute session versus needing a 75 to 90 minute session. I think that's more important for the average person.
Does Ariel spot you?
So yeah, I try. I mean, whenever we can, yes. But it was funny. I was having this conversation with my college buddies the other day because they were asking me about progressive overload, how I like to do it. Because in flex, you'll see the same sessions repeat 3 times. So the first session, you're just kind of figuring it out. You're like, 8 to 12 incline dumbbell bench. Like maybe I could do that with the 55s. You kind of try it out. Maybe it's too heavy. Maybe it's too light.
I mean, with a barbell though, like what if you were doing that with a barbell? How would you approach it?
Well,
I'll let you finish this. Yeah.
Regardless, the example is, even if we were doing with a barbell, like load 135, the first week you're kind of figuring it out. First 2 sets, you might go a little too heavy, you might go a little too light. You're kind of course correcting. The second time you see it in the cycle, now you're like, hey, like 155 tends to be my sweet spot to get to 8 really close to failure. That day, you're getting all your sets at a really challenging weight because you already figured out where you should be during that first time. The third time you do it, so now you've figured out what your kind of working weight should be week 1 or the first time through. Second time through, you now tackled that from set 1. So you got 3 to 4 very good quality sets because now you knew the weight. Third time through, now you have to beat what you did last time. And that's when I either use, have Ariel come with me and spot me, or use drop sets. But that's the week following the principle of progressive overload where you should really just burn it down. Like, that the week before you were struggling with like 8 to 9 reps of 135. That's when I know no matter what, I'm getting 10 to 11 reps, no matter what. And I have either a spot there with me or I'll go to failure and then do a drop set afterwards, because that's the week that you want to do more than you did the week before, more than you did the week before. So to answer your question, I try and get her to spot me, but like with the kids, we usually take turns in the gyms. But the third week is when I'm trying to do something to take those reps past failure, whether it's a drop set or having a spot or something like that.
Yeah, I have this rule, man, and it's been hard because I have this rule that I don't bench unless I have a spotter, and it's with a barbell. And it's hard. It's a hard rule.
Have you gotten pinned?
Have I gotten pinned?
Because the other thing for me, and then the other thing for me is I do all my lifting with the tempo, all of it, whether it's prescribed in flex or not. I personally do everything with the tempo. So if with a barbell I'm failing a lift, I'm going nice and controlled on the way down. I'm not going to fail the eccentric, and then I'm going to come up like 3 inches, and then maybe I fail, comes to my chest, and then I won't have clips on, and I'll like slide one side, slide the other. It's happened to me maybe like 3 times in the entire year, but I have no trepidation or fear or anxiousness that like if I'm alone in there and I fail a bench, no matter how heavy it is, I'm not going to be able to just slide off one side, slide off the other and get out of there. Like it's not like a worry of mine per se. I can see it being sketch if you're like not really good about using tempo and you're just kind of like blasting the chest and maybe, you fail in the mid rep or at the top and it crashes down on you. That could get a little gnarly, but one of the many reasons why I like using tempo for everything that I do is it significantly decreases the likelihood of anything sketchy happening.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why this has like been ingrained in me so much. And maybe it's because early on at the conventional gym, I saw a guy drop a barbell on his chest. Maybe it's because, when getting ready for the CrossFit Games, like there was no like I'm in this for fun. Like I was there to win. And so like, I didn't just have like a casual bench day. Like I'm going there to win. Like even if I'm doing tempo, I'm going to like such a fatigue that like, I'm going to kill myself. Right. And I think one day, maybe it was with Ashley, she's like, hey dude, look, you can't bench by yourself. Like you could get really messed up. And I just think at the time I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have that rule. And then I've just stuck with it. So it's hard because like, if I'm benching like, and then you start like kind of creating these weird rules to yourself, like, oh, well, if it's 185, like it's no big deal. But if it's 225 or above, I should probably have a spotter. So I've just kind of told myself like, dude, if I'm benching, I'm always going to have someone nearby, even if it's Caden, because Caden's strong enough now where he could help me out, or Ashley or whatever. So, or I'm always at the gyms too. So anyways, I was just curious your thoughts there. I mean, with dumbbells, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, you can just drop them.
Dude, I love training with dumbbells as of lately, man. And I love training with sand. But the barbell is obviously, fundamental. Yeah. So anyway, I was just curious your thoughts there.
When it comes to benching, I really like the dumbbells. I mean, that's one of the reasons it's really nice to take a dumbbell bench to failure.
Yeah.
Because you just drop them and it's not a big deal at all. But does it make sense what I was saying about the barbell and how it's kind of like,
especially with the tempo and with
the way that I do it, it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. But I think the reason
I think it's a good rule to have. Like I'm not like encouraging people to like go bench heavy on their own. For me, it's like not a concern, but I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, hey, I'm never benching heavy without a spot there. I think that's some things that you can employ if you're in that situation if you're really trying to like get after it that day, get that stimulus. Because again, like at least for strength and hypertrophy, you don't necessarily need to get the rep at that weight to make the adaptation happen. And what I mean by that is, say you're benching 225 and you know that 5 reps is going to be sketchy. So you get to 3, then you're like, all right, I feel good about 4. So you get to 4, 5, you're like, if I had a spotter, I would get after it, but I don't. So rack it and then grab a pair of dumbbells and blast out a drop set. Like you're going to get the adaptation in a very safe way in that respect, but you're still doing what you would have done if you had a spotter, which is you got those 4 reps in and then you're like squeezing out just a little bit more and really putting yourself in the hole. Then after that, you'll rest, have some protein, build some muscle, all good. And then you don't have to worry about like the risk.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, the fatigue that starts to kick in and you're just being aware of it. But I'll also say, man, like, I generally train with training partners. I'd say that I probably more times than not have people around me, more times than not. And it's something that I'm committing to actually this year. So this year, we've talked about the Def Reset. We've talked about, reading books. I think, so by the way, that debate has been settled. 53% or whatever say that if you listen to a book on Audible, it's the equivalent of like reading or whatever, right? Wasn't that what the quote was? It was close.
That just means 50% of people are wrong.
Yeah. So more people than not agree with me that Audible it's reading-ish. It's reading-ish. It's because you know what one person told me? He goes, Jason, I think you're totally right that that Audible is reading. And then he's like, in ancient days, the way books were transferred from one person to another was verbally. And I was like,
memorizing. I'm just listening to a podcast, dude. It's insane.
I was like, really? I was like, I gotta talk shit to Gabe about that. All right, I'm on it.
But what books are you memorizing?
Yeah, I'm not memorizing anything. But the back to the training partners, one of the things I've done is business and life gets stressful. Obviously, you were talking about that Tony Robbins. We put out a newsletter in regards to like your 20s to 40s is like a stressful time for a lot of guys, right? Trying to figure stuff out. You're trying to build. You're trying to reach your potential. You're grinding, dude. Everybody listening to this podcast right now, there's this fine line between comfort and reaching your potential and becoming like so overly stressed you can't even control yourself, right? It's like you want to be hungry, you want to be driven, you want to be better, you want to reach your potential, but not at the expense of being so like crazy you can't even enjoy anything. It's just it's a fine line that I've been working on. But anyways, one of the things I've been doing as of lately is always training with training partners, always early. And I always get after it. That's not something that's hard for me. I know for a lot of people it is. For me, getting after it's probably the easiest part of my day, but being held accountable to get after it earlier and with other people has been really helpful for me. So if you're out there, man, I mean, obviously we have the Train Hard Men's Club. That's been super successful, but now I'm taking it a step further and I'm doing it like on a more regular basis, a group of guys, basically every single day.
Yeah. I mean, right now I can't run because I'm still dealing with some sciatic nerve pain. It's been such a pain in the butt, man, literally. But I got so into waking up early and doing these runs that for a while I wasn't doing anything because I couldn't run, but I'm going out, man, and I'm doing the assault bike. I'm doing the rower. Like I'm doing some cardio in the morning, and like I'll go out there and do a hypertrophy session in the morning. I'm not like opposed to that, but I do have time later in the day, like me and Ariel turn off, but going out and doing something, especially these days when it's been super cold, like the actual decision to go out there and do it is tough, but I always feel better after I do it. Always feel better after I do it. It's just like you have a win in the bank, man. And sometimes, I mean, yes, I have time later in the day to work out, but sometimes 50% of the time it'll get cut short or something will happen. Maybe I can't even go. Something will happen because there's already too much out of my control past that point with the kids, with work, something I have to get to, whatever, that now, even if I have to skip or cut short that later session, I like know I did something. And that to me in itself is a huge win. I do plan to get back into running early in the morning, even after this marathon. Like I've enjoyed it so much and I miss it so much. But right now, unfortunately, it's going into the gym and doing the bike.
So just one thing on the training partners, I want to come back to the marathon, but I will say that, for those of you listening, you guys have been listening to the podcast for a while, that I train hard all the time, every day, grappling, tactical, whatever. But, like my motivation is not like my what do you call it? Discipline is not like unwavering, meaning like there are times where I lack discipline. I don't necessarily want to get out of bed extra early and go train. I'll do it later in the day. And what I've had to tell myself is that I know that when I work out early, even though I might have time later in the day and I will get it in because at some point I'm like, it's a part of my life. I know that if I prioritize it early, it always, without fail, allows me to be a better person throughout that day, always. And I found that if I don't train early, or even if I train casually and not hard, I find myself becoming more stressed, becoming more anxious about business, about life, whatever, throughout the entire day. But if I could just get that big win, that early, hard crush in the morning, it sets me up. So now, why does that matter? What that matters is having other people hold you accountable has been really helpful for me. So what I've been doing the last, couple of months is every Saturday we host the men's club. And 6 a.m., we're out in the parking lot. I put out a message to hundreds of guys to show up. So I have to show up. There's no way I can't. And so even if I feel like shit, whatever, I'm still showing up. If the weather's bad, I'm still showing up. But that same thing I'm now adding to my daily life where I'm messaging a group of guys to come meet me at 6, because what it does, it prioritizes me to get after it hard early And it's been really helpful for me. So if you're finding yourself a little bit down, a little bit, whatever, dude, message a friend, meet them at the gym, message a friend, go take a class, message a friend, hit our workout. And I guarantee you it'll be easier because you have someone else to let down instead of yourself being like, oh, I'm just going to kind of be casual this morning.
It's huge, man. No matter what you're trying to do, fitness, nutrition, building any habit, just having someone that is doing that with you, doing their own thing with you, but knows that you're doing the thing. Like, there are some things that I'm trying to be better at that are obviously different than what Ariel's trying to be better about. One of the things I want to talk about was this master plan meeting that we had that was like the best thing we could have done. But like, we know what each other's thing is and we'll hold ourselves accountable in that way. And I think that that works too for a lot of people. Like, if you're trying Train Hard 5 and you're like, hey man, like I'm doing 12 weeks, no booze. And that's like, tell somebody. As soon as you tell somebody that you're committing to that, it elevates the level of, hey, I got to stick to this because I told my wife, I told my buddy, like, hey, all my buddies
or maybe they'll join you.
Yeah. Maybe they'll join you. Maybe they won't, but maybe they will. And if they will, it's like 10x the accountability, because now no one wants to be the first one that like can't see it through. And if you're, familiar with at least how like my friends are, like, then you'll give that person shit. And that alone is like fear to like, continue to do the thing. So yeah, man, accountability is everything. Going at it alone without a support system, whether that is a training partner, whether that's someone tackling, improving their nutrition alongside with you, whether it's getting your spouse to do something with you. You've talked a lot about this a lot. Like, what Ashley does isn't the same thing you do training wise, but you're both getting after it in very different ways. And I know that to some extent, fires you up, fires her up. And it could be the same thing for other people. It doesn't have to be the same thing. She's not the one waking you up at 5 to go to the gym and do a Train Hard workout. Like, it's very different people, but it almost serves the same purpose or a similar purpose.
Dude, I was at the gym yesterday and I'm telling the staff, like, we were just hanging out. And dude, I was like, yeah, I haven't drank since the new year or whatever. And they're like, Jay, it's been like whatever, like it's been like a week or two. Like, what you want to
72 hours.
Yeah. You want a cookie or something? Like, but it was so funny because I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing the Train Hard 5. I'm eating 3 meals. I'm being consistent. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And they're like, I was like, oh yeah. And I've also like removed alcohol. They looked at me like, dude, what are you, were you an alcoholic or something? Why is it hard for you not to drink for a couple of weeks? And it dawned on me that, like, depending on who you said that to, some people be like, wow, you haven't had a drink in a couple weeks. Other people be like, yeah, dude, like, what's the big deal? Like, so it was interesting, but we got to keep it going. No booze for 12 weeks. I am giving myself, well, this is 12 weeks. Actually, 12 weeks might happen. Ava's Kitchen is March 22nd. And
I think that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I would say, wait, March 22nd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think for all intents and purposes, like that could be your end date, which I think is another thing to talk about with like some of these goals. It's like, it is nice to have, I think that there's a difference here, right? Like there's finishing a challenge and going full bore. Like, now you're doing all these things that like you worked so hard to build. But I think with something like this, and we haven't talked about this in depth, the reason that one of the pillars of TH5 is this like no booze isn't because that shouldn't be a part of your life moving forward. Like, that is not the intention at all. I know that culturally, I know that with family, like for a lot of people, like sharing a drink is a big deal. It's not a problem at all. It's having a wine with meal. It's enjoying wine tasting with your wife. It's so many things to so many people that can fit into a very, very healthy and well-balanced life. The goal of cutting it out for 12 weeks is, I think, very, very important for you to at least realize what maybe you don't know, how you feel when you cut that out. Because it could be that it becomes a very like, revealing time where you're like, hey, maybe I was drinking a little bit more than I was admitting to myself. I can't believe how good I feel when I cut that out. And the goal of that is so that when you hit the end of that, reestablishing what your relationship with alcohol is to what it can actually look like in true moderation, so that you still do the things that you enjoy and that you love, but you're not, doing that by sacrificing your progress and how you feel. Like, that's the goal. So I think that in that respect, it could be really cool for you to be like, hey, like Ava's Kitchen is a big deal. It's a big celebration for what you do for a really great cause. It's an awesome event. I went to it last year. I'm going this year. And I think that that could be a really cool, like, hey, I did this. And this is one of the times when I do celebrate and enjoy this with friends and the people around me. So I think that those two things are very different. But in this respect, I think that that could be a cool, like, circle on the calendar of like, hey, man, like, I've learned a lot and I'm sure you will. And like, this was a challenge, but like, this is when, we've kind of like go back to that being a part of how you celebrate stuff.
Yeah. So March 22nd. So basically, essentially I stopped drinking, or I stopped drinking. I didn't have any drinks. I haven't had any drinks. I'm not drinking in this year or whatever. Right. But March 22nd is Ava's Kitchen. And so look, if you're an avid listener of the show, you guys got to come check out Ava's Kitchen. This year, dude, is at the Mountain Winery. It's going to be super legit. We have 100 tickets. I don't know how many I've sold already, but quite a few. It's not cheap. The bottom line is it's an expensive event because it's super high end and it raises money for kids fighting cancer in their families. So if you guys want to come, make sure you check out the podcast show notes because this year, dude, I am so fired up. We've had like 4 or 5 different venues over the last 8 years. This is by far the coolest venue. Mountain Winery is just baller. It is going to be so cool. And so stay tuned for that. Make sure you check out the podcast show notes and grab your ticket because we'll see you there in March.
Hell yeah. We will see you there.
I feel like we should do something special if anybody like, I don't know. I'll think about it. We'll continue to talk about it on the podcast, but we definitely are going to do a Train Hard Men's Club for sure that morning because we did last year. We're going to do it again this year.
It's on a Saturday, right? On a Saturday.
Yeah. So tell me about this master plan. I saw
master plan.
I saw Ariel share something. I saw Ariel share something about this master plan, and she said she utilized ChatGPT.
Dude, ChatGPT for everything. It's such a hack. I mean, I was thinking about it this morning though a little bit because I was thinking about like if ChatGPT disappeared right now, like if you snapped and it was gone or I didn't have access to it. It's kind of one of those things like, how you used to remember phone numbers and now you don't.
Oh, or streets.
Right? Streets. Right.
Dude.
Like when do you not use your GPS? I had that thought this morning because I was like, man, like we use it and it's made our life so much easier. Like,
could you tell me how to get to your house? Could you tell me how to get to your house from downtown Seguin to your house and what streets to turn on? Probably not.
Ooh, the street names?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't.
I mean, so to be fair, like literally from downtown, it's the street you take all the way down until the street that I live. So that's not a good example, but I know what you mean. And no, like I wouldn't be able to say like, take a left on blank, take a right. I could probably tell you like, take a left by this building or take a right, but the street names, dude, no way.
Yeah,
no way.
Bro, back in the day.
And phone numbers, dude. Phone numbers is the biggest thing, at least for me. Back in the day, you just had to memorize people's phone numbers or write it down or whatever.
Yes.
I know very few phone numbers now, and that's it. Everyone else is the convenience. But on that note, I was thinking about like how many things are we, in a year, 2 years, 3 years time, just essentially like not going to be able to do because we have this thing do it for us.
Well, and then on that note, how about for the kids? So for example,
that's right.
Caden's doing a book report and I'm like, bro, just throw that shit in a ChatGPT. Let's figure out what it says. And Ashley's like, that's not the point, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, babe, like I totally get what you're saying. And like, I was half joking, but half serious. If these tools are going to be available to him, it'd be like not using a calculator and you have to do math. Like, why wouldn't you use a calculator if that's going to be available to you? Yeah. So it's like this weird balance where these tools are available. And like we've talked about, the people who could utilize the tools the best are going to be the ones who are going to be able to win. Now, where does that fall into play with your kids? Because now, is it cheating? Like in college, if you're using ChatGPT to write your essay, is that cheating? Maybe, probably. I don't know.
Dude, I would love to have Matt Boudreau back on to talk about specifically that, because I think that a big part of it is like, like education and how we teach kids needs to evolve to keep up with these things. Because like, based on your example, the argument I would make is, what is the point of a book report? Like, why are you writing book reports? Like, kids should obviously be encouraged to read, but wouldn't it be more useful? And I don't know if they're doing this or anything, like at a very early age, like, hey guys, let's use AI to come up with a business plan for something you want to do. Like, hey, Caden, like you want to start, you know,
Oh, I gotta talk
base,
about that.
baseball glove breaking in business, right? You can go into ChatGPT and be like, hey, I want to start, I'm a 10-year-old kid and I want to start baseball glove, breaking in business. Like, help me come up with a business plan. Here's what I want to do. Here's the people that, and like, then you're teaching them how to use this tool to do something super cool that they're probably fired up about. So that's kind of where my mind goes on what is it that we're even kind of doing at school, and how much of this stuff is just a little bit outdated in that, do you have to memorize the capitals and the battles of the Civil War and then regurgitate it in a test, and like how beneficial is that versus some of these more real world skills, and how much time are teachers spending on that stuff?
Dude, it's a good debate. I mean, think about it this way, like we're right at the cusp, at least for me, where the internet became like obviously really popular. And so when I was in college, it was like, or let's just say high school, when you had the internet, they'd ask for like 4 resources, right? And typically they would say, hey, 2 had to be written resources like from a book and 2 could be from the internet. That was like back in the day, right? But now I imagine almost all of your resources come from the internet in some way, shape, or form. It might be from a book, but everything is now digital, right? So it's just evolved, But speaking of Caden, bro, this kid, he extorted me. So he's like, dude, so Caden this has got to be the definition of extortion. Caden, I was grappling with him the other day and I was just filming it. And I film almost all of our grappling just because I want to be able to look back on it too. And it's really fun to look back on. Plus we share it. And he goes, hey dad, I'm old enough now. I was on, someone showed me their Instagram and I saw that some of the videos with me in it have hundreds of thousands of views.
Oh,
he goes,
boy. Oh boy.
He goes, so I just want to know, like, when do I get paid for that? And I'm like, I took a pause. I was like, He goes, look, the ones in the past, that's in the past. But he goes, if you want to use my, what's the college
likeness,
now?
my likeness?
Yeah, but what's the college now? The fun, it's a 3-letter word, like the
fuck. And I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The new kind of structure to pay college athletes.
Maybe image, likeness, and something, right? If you want to use my, and I think it's NIL. Anyways, whatever. If you want to use that of mine, right? Wait, hang on. Liz is pulling it up. Name, image, and likeness. NIL. Yeah. So name, image, likeness. If you want to use my name, image, likeness, just like the college and high school athletes are getting paid, I need to get paid $10 anytime that I'm shown on a short form Instagram, and $100 anytime I'm on YouTube for longer than 5 minutes. And I was like,
where did he get this from?
Bro, where did he get this from? I feel like he must have been talking to a friend of his or something.
Pretty good deal though.
And be like, hey, I think your dad could pay you for this kind of stuff. Like these college players are getting paid. Why aren't you getting paid? And anyways, he that's extortion, right? Like,
what did you say?
I said, okay. I said, I'll make you a deal. If I use your image on social, because it is a part of the brand we're building, where we're trying to raise up young men, and I am using your image and likeness, to be fair, I will pay you your $10. But the likelihood of you being in a YouTube video for 5 minutes or longer is super slim. So I'll give you $100 for that too.
Here's what you should do. You should print out, like at the end of the month, like a really nice professional, like on Train Hard paper, like I guess it would be an invoice with like all the clips that he's been in, and like, right, $10, $10, $10. Okay, 10 videos, $100. And then deduction, like gas money for baseball practice, deduction, like, meal fee,
room
meal
and
fee
board,
times 7. Yeah. Room and board, missed taking out the garbage can, like 7% service fee. And it's like, ooh, look at that. At the end of the day, you're at -200, buddy.
Yeah, you actually owe me money.
yeah. Just hand that to him and be like, I'll put it on your tab.
Dude, it was like a funny moment, because remember we were having that conversation with Seth Rollins or Kobe Lopez, the WWE star, and he was asking about social media and stuff like that. And my kids have just gotten relatively used to it. Like when we were out at a restaurant or a couple of days ago with our family, and we walk in, a guy, he's a CrossFit guy, and he recognized us. We started having a conversation. My kids think nothing of it. They just keep doing their thing. Whatever. But when it comes to now on social, Dude, Caden's like, bro, I need to get a couple of bucks. He goes, I need to get paid.
That's funny. That's funny. There, I mean, there's like, there's something there 100% where you have to like appreciate the hustle and like the, even coming up and the way he pitched it like that, dude, I would have been rolling laughing. Like that is awesome in many ways.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a parenting lesson in everything. And I think, if he like something like, hey, if you're keeping track of this stuff and you can present it, like great, like, create some structure around it. I don't know, but there's always opportunities in this stuff. But I think it's pretty cool that he brought that up. That's funny though. It's funny.
It is really funny. And now he's all in. He's like, hey dude, you wanna, if you ever, because we work out, we're doing this stuff all the time anyways. And most of the time we don't film it unless we're grappling. For some reason, for grappling, I always film it because I want to be able to look back on it. But I don't film our workouts because we work out all the time together. But now knowing that I have to pay him $10 if I ever use it, I don't know. I might not put those things up as much.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't come out of my marketing budget, you can go ahead and pay him. It's funny. You're gonna put something up. You're gonna forget, and you're gonna get like a DM from his friend at school who's like now his representative. Like he's gonna send you.
Yeah. I'm representing Caden in this. So, anyways, hey, if you guys see any content on social media with Caden, just give it some extra love, or maybe go pick up a shirt or do something because
it's costing Jason.
Yeah, it's costing me some money. So make sure to go pick up a new Train Hard shirt, please.
Oh man. Dude, so you asked me about this, the master plan meeting with Ariel. We did a light version of this, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast just in passing, because we did a version of this last year, but it was basically us just like talking in the living room and like formally visiting, like, hey, what did we do well this year? Like, what are our goals? Like, what are we planning to do? What trips are we trying to take? Like, loose budgeting, like how much are we trying to spend? Or we made the decision we were going to build out the gym because that was going to be a big expense. Just kind of like, okay, it's the new year. Let's get on the same page about some stuff instead of like dealing with everything as it went. But this year we were like, let's like formalize this a little bit. Let's have fun with it. The kids are old enough too. They spent the whole day with their grandparents. So we had like the full day to ourselves. We spent 3 days in three hours in a coffee shop, just going through a list of questions that, yes, we used AI to come up with because it just gives you good ideas, and just like formally touched on everything, man, like relationship, professional goals, fitness goals, like budget, what traditions do we want to have as a family? Like, do we feel that we are approaching parenting in a way that we're like proud of? Obviously not perfect, far from that, but like, how have we done this past year? What can we do better? And, we even had some like, what I would say pretty honest and tough conversations about some stuff, but that because we did it in a setting where we were excited to go and we went to a coffee shop we've been like dying to try out, like the fact that we were able to have those conversations, not in the heat of the moment of the thing that bothers me or the thing that bothers her, but more like 100% removed and like in a very neutral, positive setting, that I think was the best thing that came out of this. Like, was it fun to talk about like our goals and the trips we want to go on this year? And like, like, hey, what do we want to contribute as a good cause as a family? Like all of those things, those were fun. But I think the biggest thing, at least for us, that I think was incredibly valuable was touching on some of the things that could have easily been a very not positive conversation had it blown to a point where like I had to bring it up in the house or she had to bring it up in the house, and just saying like, hey, this is something that's been on my mind, and talking through it. Like, dude, I highly recommend.
What was the best question that sparked the best conversation? Because I imagine it wasn't, hey, what type of philanthropic do we want to get behind? I think, or it wasn't like the fluffy. Not, I don't want to use the word. That's not the right term. What was the question that sparked the best conversation?
I'd have to look back at the exact wording. Ariel posted it on Instagram, but it was essentially when we started talking about like, what habits do we want to work on? Ooh. Because that really turned into like, both of us kind of know the things that like bother the other ones. It's kind of like we don't talk about it, but like, I know the things that I do that she doesn't love, and she knows the things that she does that I don't love. And because we respect each other, and it doesn't matter that that's not a big deal for me, it matters that it's a big deal for her. Like, that is something that I want to work on. So bringing that up and then having an honest conversation about like, yeah, and here's why it bothers me, so on and so forth, I think was, oh, look, there are the questions.
So Liz popped up the questions, and Ariel had shared it. It's like, reflect on the past year, celebrate financial, Liz, if you want to slow down just a little bit. I'm not a speed reader. Reflect on the past year, celebrate financial wins and learn from setbacks. Set goals for the new year, define financial priorities, career goals, things of that nature, strengthen family and relationships. So these are like the different like categories: financial planning, set income goals, track expenses, long-term vision, dream big. Where do you want to go in 5 years? Choose a cause of support, take action, identify 3 actionable steps for each focus area, use tools and regular check-ins to stay on track. So it sounds like there was like macro themes and kind of broke into micro themes, and then you kind of like flow through it. So the hardest one, based on what you're saying, was this idea of things that you're doing that maybe like habits, right? Because they could be like, oh, well, dude, you do this and it frustrates me. Probably start a conversation, right? Obviously there's some friction there. And then how about the 5-year goal? Were you guys on the same page on where you guys want to do with that?
Yeah. A lot of that stuff is like where we honestly like see ourselves from. Like, I've talked to you about this before. Like, are we staying here in the house? Like, are we doing changes to the house? Are we trying to move? Are we trying to like buy something new? Kids, like, more kids, when that would happen, like stuff like that. And it was fun because the question sparked, or the way we both answered it was literally like, okay, 5 years from today, what do we see? Like, how many kids do we have? Like, what house are we in? What does that house have? Like, how much money are we making? Like, how many trips are we going on? Like, what are we doing for our parents? What are we contributing to a cause that we're super fired up about? And that stuff is like, in many ways, super aspirational, but it's fun to, with your person and with your partner, like go through those things, because some things will be different, but you get really excited about the things that are the same. You get really excited about the fact that she's really on the same page about staying here in our community, and like, we love where we live, and we're probably going to try and make it work with the house and make some changes, and like, we're not going to go out and like try and find something else. Like, it was fun to realize that we were on the same page about a lot of stuff, and then imagining that in the future, and then stepping back from that, starting to put into place some of the things that we need to do now to make that a reality, is just, any goal works like that. And to do it with, the person you love the most was fun, because, some of these things, you'll look at those questions and it sounds like a meeting you would have at work with your team or with your colleagues. And like, I'm not saying people don't love the people they work with, but it's just so different when it's with like your fucking person. It's just so much fun. So highly recommend doing something like that. It doesn't have to be as formal, but I think that if you leave some of these conversations to chance and to when you have time, especially if you're a new parent, when honestly you don't have time and everything's chaos. Like, if you're not just carving out half a day to do some of this, there's the running joke you always see, or at least I always see a lot of like little videos and reels and GIFs about like, yeah, we had kids and I haven't talked to my husband in 3 years. Like, we're trying to be the complete opposite of that. And it takes a lot of work. It takes intention. I can see how you can easily slip into, the chaos of being kids and slipping into like being more roommates than partners. Like, it happens to a lot of people, and we're just trying to get in front of that as best we can, and not perfect by any means, but this was something that I wanted to share because I think it was really helpful.
Dude, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think for Ash and I, our kids are older. Our kids are about to be 14 and 11, which is crazy. I mean, they're 13 and 10 now. They have birthdays coming up in a couple of months, but we have a lot more time that we spend alone together. And to be honest, because of life circumstances over the last 10 years, we've been forced to have some like really hard conversations. Not even hard, just really like we've been forced into certain conversations that have led us into a place where like it's like a normal, like, especially like the night that Ava got diagnosed with leukemia, it forced a conversation that was like very intense, right? Like, okay, like, and then over the next 2 years, you're forced in these conversations. But what it does is, I'm not saying that equates to what you and Ariel were talking about, but what it does, it creates a vernacular between the two of you where you're comfortable having like more in-depth conversation. I guess the point I'm trying to make, right? It
for sure.
It normalizes it. So over the next 10 years or so, it became a normal thing where we would have conversations like, hey, what does the next year look like? What does this look like? But even so, like some of the stuff that you brought up, I don't think Ash and I have really sat down. Like, I think we have a really good idea of like, this is our forever house. This is that. Obviously, I think we're, we have 2 kids. We're good, but we haven't said, hey, 5 years from now, what does our life look like? Or even for us, thinking about when the kids are out of high school and they're in college, what does that look like for us? We could do a better job of talking about that, like super, super far out. But I think you guys bringing that up, I think is really important for anybody listening who isn't having at least those type of conversations with their spouse. Dude, you can get ahead of so much. And you could probably realize if you're on the same page about some really big things. Because if you're not, you could probably start, working towards being on the same page, right? And you might need to give a little bit on each side. But you can't just assume your partner wants to, have, if you assume your partner wants to have 3 more kids and you only want to have 1 more, dude, that's no bueno. Like, you got to find a way to kind of find that balance,
And that's a big thing that you said, is that like the age that your kids are at, you do have a lot more time with Ashley. Yeah. That's just you and Ashley, where you guys are touching on this stuff all the time and you just have your own time. I know, because we've lived it, how easy it is with very young kids to lose that. Because I mean, the perfect example is this was literally the first time since Charlie was born. So that's 8 months that it's been just me and Ariel. We've left Shay with grandparents, but Charlie's usually with us. That it's been just us 2 having like one-on-one time for as long as we did. It was basically wild. The whole day.
That's wild.
And do we have conversations in the house? Are the kids sleeping at night and like we have some time? Of course. But there's just something about, at least for us, that we were like in the car together talking, and we went to the coffee shop. We went through all this. Then we went and had some Mexican food, and then we walked around town, and it's just us. And it's funny because by the end, not even by the end of it, by the middle of it, like, we're getting pictures of the kids from the zoo because they went to the zoo with my parents, and we're like, we miss them so much. So it's not like we're like, give me some time away from the kids, but it's important. It's important. I can't tell you how many times I want to talk to Ariel about something that is probably pretty urgent. And Shay is just like, that's the moment where he's like, he needs her, or he's like yelling or whatever. And it's just like not a place to have a conversation. So taking that time aside was huge. And we're definitely going to try and do a lot more of it moving forward. Not having this whole thing, but just, getting out and spending some time without the kids, just us. Super important.
Yeah, dude. And now then you get to an age where like Ava, dude, she's going to Mexico with my in-laws for 4 days. Like,
oh boy.
Like, I'm just saying, like, she's off doing her own thing. And I'm just, it's me, Ashley, and Caden here at the house, right? And it's like, okay, like, and then Caden goes and plays baseball. It's like, okay, then it's Ashley and I. So it's just evolution, right? It just evolves.
For sure.
Yeah, dude. It's all good, man. That's great. I really love what you had to say, though. I think those questions were really good. Obviously, you can put it in ChatGPT, or you can go steal Ariel's Instagram and go pull it off there.
Yeah, and again, it's just kind of touching on big picture stuff, little stuff. But I think the nice thing too about like having the questions beforehand is then it doesn't come off like, if there is something that you want to talk about, it doesn't come off as like, hey, I think we really should talk about this. Because I think a big part of what we wanted to do is not make either of us feel defensive or attacked about anything. So just having like a very third party.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Hey, this is what we're going to talk about, versus like, hey, I think we really need to address this thing. And then she's like, what do you mean we have to address that? Like, is that thing an issue? Like, we wanted to avoid that as best as possible. And I think this just really helps. Same way you would go, for some people, it's really useful to do like some sort of couples therapy or relationship coaching. It's very similar in many respects. It's just that it removes the like, well, I think you're doing this. It's just kind of like a little bit subjective. Anyway.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. I love it. Well, hey, kind of final thing, dude, for those of you a couple weeks ago when this releases, a week or 2 ago, dude, you saw that, the Zuck, I just feel like, it was such a 180, man. I mean, I just feel like,
dude, it's the BJJ.
Dude, I think it's the jiu-jitsu. Like,
dude, 100% it is.
It is just fascinating 100%. For me. So Mark Zuckerberg lives 30 minutes from me, right? I've never been to his house, but I know where he lives, right? And, I've been to Facebook countless times. We did some work with them for a while. Like, I understand the culture. I get it. This is like, the company's been around for a long time. And to watch it evolve to put fat checkers and all these different things in. And I do think he was trying at the best interest of the people. I do. I think he was trying at the time to do the best he could. But dude, for him to admit that they had their own biases and that like, it was just, I don't know, man. You talk about from a leadership perspective, it takes a lot of balls to go out there and put out, you could agree or disagree with what the move he made is, but to basically say like, hey, we kind of messed this up and we're taking a step back. I could appreciate someone who does that. And I think the jiu-jitsu space probably helped him open his mind and get out of his own echo chamber. And that probably led to a bunch of other things, right? You know what I'm saying? Because he's a legit grappler, dude.
100%. I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say is a lot of people, when you surround yourself with just people that think the same way as you do, have the same ideas as you do, rightfully so, like you're 100% convinced that like this is the only possible lens you can, or worldview you can have. The interesting thing, and it's I don't remember what initially got him into it, but he living in Silicon Valley, big tech, like that's a bubble in itself. To then go into this bubble of combat sports and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and UFC and Dana White and all of these guys, like it inevitably will just open your mind to the fact that there's other ideas out there. And there's like the people that in many ways are villainized because they have different ideas as just being like whatever, like bad people or dumb people or whatever. You spend enough time and you're like, oh, it's just different set of ideas. That's all it is. We don't have to agree about everything. And I think that as soon as you become open-minded enough to realize that like, hey, you might disagree with me on maybe even some really serious issues, but at the end of the day, like I know you and you're a great guy and just your life experiences have shaped the way that you believe some things. My life experiences have shaped the way I believe in things. And it's okay. Like it's what I'm most excited about with some of these changes happening is not the fact that they're changing or that they're aligning more or less with what I think. I just think that we need to get back to a point where like you can disagree with people and that's perfectly okay. Like you can disagree with people that you admire. You can disagree with people that you like, that you call your friend. And that's 100% okay. Like if we can go back to that, we'll be in such a better place. We don't have to get to a point where everyone agrees with everything. I think that that's not a good place to be in. We should disagree. But if we can disagree and that not impact what we think of other people, I think we'd be much better off.
Yeah, man. I just want to give a shout out to Mark Zuckerberg on that.
For sure.
Because dude, he's going to get hate obviously there's going to be a group of people are going to say, hey, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. But the fact that he said, hey, we went this direction. We need to make a correction and we're doing this. Dude, it's just from a leadership perspective, there's something I think people could learn from their business. Like if all signs are pointing to it, like you got to make a change and people are going to say whatever they want and he's going to go out there but to your point, I think we are getting to a place where like, hopefully people could disagree on things and still have a conversation about it. Cause for a while you couldn't even get close to that. And I see that, where I live, it's very, very different, especially because I hang out with a lot of people with certain views. And then I live with a bunch of people, like within my circles that have different views. And so it's been cool for me because I get different vantage points and oftentimes you don't get that same thing. So, but dude, hey, my major takeaway from this is we got to find out if you beat me. Well, you didn't beat me on the row. And we got to find out what the guy's got. MDV's with his Achilles problem. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. But I am curious what Dennis gets. I bet you he's going to do really well. And I appreciate you sharing about the meeting between you and Ariel. I think there's a lot of takeaways there. And I hope people can, impart that. I'm going to actually talk to Ashley about it here today. So I appreciate you.
Love it, man.
I appreciate everybody for listening. Make sure you check out Ava's Kitchen. That's the podcast show notes. Make sure to check out all of our awesome training programs at Train Hard. And look, dude, final thing. If you get value from these episodes, the guest episodes, the episodes with Dennis, myself, Gabe, dude, we're putting a lot of time, a lot of energy. You want to have great conversations. All we ask, simple ask, right, is just leave the podcast a rating and review and share with a friend. Would greatly appreciate it. I hope you and your family are having a kick-ass 2025 and have a great inauguration day.